Hi everyone, it's Julianne here and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you how I created this Missing You card using the On My Mind exclusive STAMPtember 2020 stamp set that's a collaboration between Honeybee Stamps and Simon Says Stamp. This stamp set is an exclusive stamp that's only going to be available for a limited time while supplies last. So if you are interested, make sure to head on over to Simon Says Stamp in order to grab yours today. For my card today, I am going to be using the exclusive On My Mind stamp set. This is a 6x8 stamp set that features this beautiful floral wreath, along with a bunch of different beautiful sentiments that I absolutely love. I love how they each have different scripts in them. I think that's totally unique. The stamp set will also include some smaller images, such as these acorns, and you're able to add those into your wreath. I'm also going to be using some border dies for my card today, as well as the Honeybee Stamps Background Builder stamp set. So let's get started. I'm going to be starting out by taking that floral wreath image, and I'm going to be stamping that down onto some black colored cardstock using some VersaFine ink, so that way I can do some embossing today. Before I do any stamping, I am going to add some anti-static powder to my cardstock, and that's going to make sure that the embossing powder that I'm going to add is only going to stick to where I have stamped my image. So I'm just going to stamp this image 2 times to make sure that I have a really nice impression. And then I'm going to be embossing my image using some Gina K Gold embossing powder. Once I have my image covered in that embossing powder, I'm then going to make sure to remove any random powder that I have on my cardstock. And then I'm going to be heat setting the powder using my heat tool. When it comes to embossing, I always like to make sure that my heat tool is good and hot before bringing it to my cardstock. So I just have it off to the side heating up for about 20 to 30 seconds while I do my stamping. I also like to take my heat tool and run it back and forth on the back side of my cardstock in order to get that cardstock a little warm before I actually start embossing my image. I find that this really helps me to get a really nice embossed line without any bubbling. Once I have my image all embossed, I'm then going to be using a pair of scissors in order to fussy cut my wreath out. Now this stamp set does have coordinating dies. You can either choose to purchase the stamp set by itself, or you can purchase this set, which will include the dies. But I only have the stamp set, so I'm just going to be doing some fussy cutting as you see here. For the inside of the wreath, I am going to be using a craft knife in order to cut out the center. And once I have that all finished, I'm then going to start working on creating my background. And for that, I'm going to be using the Background Builder stamp set by Honeybee Stamps. And I'm going to be stamping the solid stripe image in order to create a repeating diagonal background. And I'm going to be stamping that using some Catherine Puller Twilight ink. Next, to add some texture to my background, I'm just going to place my panel into my splat box, and I'm going to be splattering some distress paint all over my background using a paintbrush. And then I'm just going to set that off to the side to dry while I start working on adding in my sentiments. So like I mentioned before, this stamp set has a bunch of different beautiful sentiments included, and they all come in different scripts. So it was really hard for me to decide which one I wanted to use for my card today. But I finally decided that I wanted to use the Missing You sentiment. And I'm just going to be stamping that in the center of my wreath using some Memento Tuxedo black ink. Now I am going to play around with the placement to add in an additional sentiment, but at this point in the card making process, I decided that I only wanted one sentiment on the outside of my card, but you will see here at the end of the video that I did end up changing my mind, and I am going to be adding an additional sentiment. For the inside of my card, I trimmed and scored a piece of black colored cardstock to a normal A2 size top folding card base, and I'm going to be stamping the wreath image again along with an additional sentiment on the inside of my card using some Delicata Golden Glitz ink in order to match my gold embossing that's going to be on the outside. Along with the reef, I am going to be stamping the sentiment "so much" on the inside as well. So at this point in my card, my sentiment is going to read, "Missing you so much." Since this ink does take a while to dry, once I've stamped both of those out, I'm just going to place my card base off to the side to dry before I move on. I'm now going to start working on assembling everything together for my card, and I'm going to be starting out by adhering my stamped background panel to my card base using some foam adhesive in order to give my card that little bit of added dimension. Next, I'm then going to be adhering my sentiment onto the center of my background using some more of that liquid adhesive. And then finally, to add even more dimension to my card, I decided that I wanted to add some more of that foam adhesive to the back of my reef, and I'm going to be adhering that onto my card, making sure to position that around my sentiment. Finally, to finish off my card, I'm going to be adhering a few of the gold confetti mix sequins that Honeybee Stamps offers, and I'm going to be adhering those throughout my background using some more of that liquid adhesive. And it was at this point in my card that I decided that there was just way too much white space in the center of my reef, and I really felt as though something was missing. So I'm just going to place my card back inside of my MISTI, and I'm going to be stamping the additional sentiment that I mentioned earlier in this video. And I'm going to be stamping that sentiment using some more of that Memento Tuxedo Black ink. And that way my sentiment will now read, "Missing you, sweet friend." So once I get that all stamped out, that's just going to complete my card using the Honeybee Stamps On My Mind exclusive STAMPtember 2020 stamp set. Now remember, if you are interested in this stamp set, to head on over to the Simon Says Stamp website in order to grab yours today before they sell out. These stamps and dies are limited time only while supplies last, and once they're gone, they're going to be gone forever. I want to thank you all so much for stopping by and spending some time with me. If you liked this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, as well as subscribe for even more card making ideas. And if you are interested in any of the supplies I used, I will make sure to have them all listed and linked down below in the description box. And as always, I hope you have a wonderful day and happy crafting!